Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbley, and today I'm going to combine two ideas. I wanted to talk about the citizen journalist, and I also wanted to talk about public radio and television in the US. My perspective is the citizen journalist is an element of the future. The citizen journalist represents everything that can unwrap the current circumstances we find ourselves in and provides a new tool to satirize what we have traditionally thought of as media, at least in the English-speaking West and pretty well the world. The responsibility of the citizen journalist is to go and document various things as they occur in such a fashion that their documentation, their documentary evidence, completely circumvents whatever is being provided as the dominant narrative. And in this light, I look at what went on in Iran and what has gone on in various other parts of the globe through tumultuous times, what's going on in Syria periodically. And you have individuals there that capture video footage, that capture audio, that capture incidents as they occur and transmit this information to the world. And it makes it very difficult for dominant narratives that exist on, the 7 o'clock news to contradict the information that these individuals are putting out there. To vastly a lesser extent, I feel what I do with regards to producing independent audio content is not of the same ilk as folks that are, filming sniper fire in Iran, but in a little way capturing an element which is not part of any dominant corporate media narrative. And when I say that, I mean that I can collect together like-minded folk just through putting audio out there and getting this audio heard, getting people nodding, getting people to continue to listen in to the various ideas and ramblings that I have. And in that light, I see what I'm doing as not being the same pinnacle of citizen journalists in war zones, for example, but at least contributing to the broader narrative associated with a no longer hierarchically controlled society based on traditional media methods of getting information from the government, the corporations, what have you, to the people in such a way that the people feel comfortable with the narratives that they're being presented. My broad concern associated with public radio and television in the US is firstly, it is neither public nor does it fit in any way with this narrative associated with citizen journalism. Through the period of time that Toyota couldn't get cars to brake correctly, they put a vast quantity of money into PBS, the public television station. And this affected the reporting that the PBS News did associated with this issue. While there are hundreds of thousands of individuals that contribute financially to public television and radio in the US, potentially even millions, the corporate financiers, the folks that provide corporate sponsorship of these enterprises, typically get the better deal than the individuals that are contributing. And although historically there has been this perspective that public radio and television leans more to democratic causes, I feel that the parties in this country are basically representing the same entities, the same economic entities that also finance NPR and PBS, sometimes in an explicit fashion where they actively announce it, and sometimes just in an implicit fashion. The cost associated with NPR and PBS is astonishing, and no part of it relates back to this idea of citizen journalism. If NPR relied upon individuals within communities to produce audio which created the programs that they then broadcast, you would have a completely different model than the current NPR model, which is based on historical, big media, top-down, a very few number of specific intellectuals that give their particular perspective on a variety of issues. And I think the time for public radio and television in the model as it exists in the US has pretty well been superseded by podcasts. citizen journalism is a growing phenomenon. We are seeing the early seeds of this. It's in its infancy, particularly with the ability of the internet to propagate information very quickly. I foresee within the next decade a new wave of citizen journalism which is completely independent of focal networks. There's been much talk associated with various journalists getting together and creating independent, trying to get towards the citizen journalism paradigm associated with how they produce information. But I still think the individuals, the folks that are actually producing the content, vastly pluralist, are going to be the ones who actively dictate how this goes in the future. And I think what has historically been covered by television channels, media networks, the media industry, as we see it covering every possible, realm of corporate and government-sponsored fiasco, has a limited time in the contemporary internet. What happens in the future is going to be very, very interesting. And I think the seeds have progressively been sown to move away from what has historically created a very monotone, very focused, these are the issues that you can now talk about. These are the distinctions between the issues. Now frame a debate within this context. That paradigm doesn't exist anymore. And quite frankly, I think it's a responsibility of individuals here to squash these kind of discussions when they occur. And just to point out quite blatantly that we as independent thinkers could pick any component, any aspect, and discuss anything that we want to without the framing of these are the parameters and paradigms in which these ideas have to be discussed. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.